that Ohtani time. What a wild thing to have been around for, to be covering a team and be on the beat of a team that seemingly, it appeared to everybody, was very close to signing a baseball player that no one's seen before and we may never see again. We're all familiar with the plane tracking and the Morosi tweet and just everything that went down during that 48 hours. What was that experience like for you? Like, that must have been an absolutely crazy time to not only process, but try and get actual facts.
It was impossible to get anything out of anybody at that point, which is why I was so interested to write this chapter, because with it in the past a bit more, people were a little more open to talk about what went into it. And it's been interesting to see people's reaction to this chapter. Some people, it's not a great memory, of course. And I think that the fact Vladdy has extended here hopefully softens this chapter a bit. And as I've gone through writing this chapter and speaking to everyone who was involved in it about the details of what actually happened on those days, I've come away from it not really viewing this as a failure for the Blue Jays. You know, I know they got the reputation as the team that keeps finishing second for a couple of years there. But now that I understand what went into this, everything from the pitch meetings to how they sold him on the team to what they had in the locker room for him and his dog that day. I mean, I appreciate what they did. And at a certain point, you can't pick up your team and put it on the West Coast if you're the Blue Jays. And it was fascinating to go through this process again for me, because I remember those winter meetings in Nashville and then coming home those next couple of days as all this stuff was breaking loose. And the plane tracking, the missed reporting from multiple sources was messy. And like I write in the book, it's not a fan's job to figure out which journalists are reporting the right stuff. They're just supposed to. So that left a lot of people sour about how this played out, and it should have. But going back through this was fascinating for me because it was such a high intensity time in my life. And I remember December 8th or 9th, whatever day it was that Ohtani finally signed, we were, I remember that vividly. We were having a few days late celebration for my girlfriend's birthday at that time. And I remember just having to hand her a credit card and say, like, I'll meet you there. I don't know. We'll see. So there were high stakes those days. But it got to a point where the Blue Jays legitimately, and a lot of people around the league, thought they'd landed him. And I talked to players, executives, coaches who were getting texts from people around the league like, hey, you got him. Like, congrats. And after working on this chapter, the Blue Jays were not used. They were that's a little brother, younger sibling way of thinking. Like, no, they didn't get used for the big, mean Dodgers. They had a legitimate chance, and they came really damn close to getting Shohei Ohtani. And it's a heartbreak, but I don't view that as a huge failure by the Jays. I think they did really well in the pursuit. Sometimes you just don't get the guy. And it got so close that I write this in the chapter, but sometimes you have to get a story ready. And I included in the chapter, which I don't think people will like at all, the story I had sitting on my laptop of the Blue Jays signing Ohtani that was ready for the moment. And I just had a couple of gaps where I would put XXXX, and that was for the years, the money, and the time of day. So the story was written out. The Blue Jays have done it. They've signed Shohei Ohtani to an X-year contract worth X million dollars. It was ready to go. And thankfully, I remember after that day, I emailed that story to myself just in case it was any use for the book, and I decided to put it in. But man, never cover anything like that again. I no chance I'll ever cover something close to that.